Well, he only played 7 seasons in the NHL, but those were some of the greatest by a goaltender in NHL history. Consistently one of the most important and stylized goalies of the 1940s. Helped Montreal recapture Stanley Cup glory 2 times in the middle of the decade around the war years, and was one of the top ambidextrous goalies ever in the history of pro hockey. So today we're going to talk about the legend of William Ronald Durnan, known as Bill Durnan. Now, he played, again, 7 seasons in the NHL. During his career, he was one of the most dominant goalies in the NHL, winning the Vezina Trophy for fewest goalies 6 out of 7 times, being named first All-Star team as best goalie 6 times, and again helped the Habs to the Cup championship in 44 and 46. Now, this was all okay, but he had to retire because he suffered a nervous condition throughout his career, and he was stressed out in every game. A typical, goalie seeing a lot of pucks. Now, he retired in 1950, and he cited the stress of playing pro hockey as the main reason for quitting, because, if he would have stayed, my God, the 1950s, he would have won at least, Montreal would have won at least all those cups in the early to mid 1950s. Now, he also served as captain of the Habs in 48, the last goalie to be allowed to captain his team. The rules have changed now. Now, in 64, Durnan was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and in 2017, he was named one of the 100 greatest NHL players in history. Now, Durnan only played 7 seasons again in the NHL due to the fact he was 27 upon entering the league. Now, he first came to major prominence with the North Toronto Juniors of the TJHL, the Sudbury Wolves of the NOHA in 33, the Toronto Torontos of the TIHL in 34, and the Toronto British Council. He played also with the Toronto All-Stars in 34, the Toronto McCool in 35 of the TMHL, and the Toronto Dominions of the TMHL. Now, with Kirkland Lake, he put up some really, really strong numbers. Won an Allen Cup with them in 1940 with a 14-1-2 record. Now, with Kirkland Lake, he played in 3 Allen Cups in 38, 39, and 40. And again, the last one, 1940, put him over the top. Now, he moved to the Montreal Royals of the QSHL in 41 and helped them to the Memorial Cup that year. He also played with Montreal in 42 and 43. Now, his amateur and semi-pro level was beyond comparison. Now, when he became a pro, he was a recipient of Vezina Trophy for allowing the fewest goals against in each of his four seasons, from 44 to 47, becoming the first to capture the award, like I said, in those quartet of straight years. Now, a poor season by the Habs in 48 allowed Turk Broda of the Maple Leafs to end Durhan's streak. Durnan, however, returned to the province the next 2 seasons, capturing his 5th and 6th Vezinas in 1949-50. Again, selected to the first All-Star team, including 4 consecutive selections from 44 to 47. Now, during the 48 season, Durnan served as the Canadiens' captain. However, he left the crease so often to argue calls that other teams claimed he was giving the Canadiens unscheduled timeouts. After the season, the NHL passed a rule barring goaltenders from performing the duties of captain, known as the Durnan rule. While Roberto Luongo was named captain of the Canucks in 2008, Luongo had no on-ice rights as such, making Durnan the last goalie to officially serve as captain and to wear the C in his jersey in the NHL. Now, he was very imposing, 6 feet 190, and a stand-up goalie that drew a lot of fear in shooters because he would man the cage like very angry on a regular basis. Now, following the 50th season, at the age of 35, he decided to step down. Again, no longer able to stand the stress of playing professional hockey. He later went into coaching, most notably with the Ottawa Senators of the QSHL at 51 and the Kitchener-Waterloo Dutchmen of the OHA in 1959. Now, what stood out with Durnan was he shutout record as well. He set a long-standing modern NHL record between February 26 and March 6, 49, when he registered 4 consecutive shutouts, not allowing a goal over a span of 309 minutes 21 seconds. The record stood until 2004 when Brian Boucher, then at the Coyotes, broke it with 5 straight shutouts to get 332.01. He was ranked 5th all-time in career wins, shutouts, and goals against average, and this only in 7 years. Now, the induction in the Hall of Fame in 64 was based on 383 regular season games, 208 victories, 112 losses, 34 shutouts, and a 2.36 goals against average. He had 27 wins, 12 losses with 2 shutouts, and a 2.07 average in 49 playoff games. And like I said, he won the Allen Cup with Kirkland Lake in 1940. Now, when I said he's ambidextrous, he was equally adept at using his right or left hand, as he wore special gloves that permitted him to catch with either hand while still holding his stick. And he was, like I said, a very good stand-up goaltender due to his height, which kind of broke the mold of the stand-up at the time. Because, again, he was one of the biggest players on the ice. Now a 6'4", 5 goalie is common, but back then it was a rarity. There were 5'6", 5'8", 5'9". Now, because he was born in Toronto, he called the great T.O. home for a number of years. And unfortunately, on October 31st, 1972, he died of kidney failure, primarily because he suffered from his diabetes in the last years, and his health had been failing steadily. Now, awards again, the Allen Cup in 40, NHL First All-Star Team, 54 to 57 inclusive, 49 and 50, Vezina 44 to 47 inclusive, 49-50, playing the NHL All-Star Game, 47, 48, 49, Stanley Cup, 44, 46, Hockey Hall of Fame. They named him 34th overall on the Hockey News list of the 100 greatest hockey players. But I think the reason why he's that high for the time he was there, to my memory, there's no professional major pro player that did as much in a 7-season span in any sport that Bill Durnan did with the recognition and awards. Although we had flashes of brilliance with Bo Jackson and other players, they didn't win major awards. They were on the cusp of doing something quite large. But with Durnan, he was a specialist in the net, and he's the link to the 1930 style goalie, which was very prevalent, to the modern goalie of the 60s and 70s, because he would stop everything, literally and figuratively. Now, we're talking about the 2 championship runs. In 1944, when they won the Cup, Montreal won 8-1 that year in the playoffs with a 1.53 average for Durnan. Now, in 46, he won 8-1 with 2.07 average. And the 62 shutouts and 208 victories, you look at the basic percentage on that. If he would have won 400 games in a modern era, he would have had 120 shutouts. Although more players had shutouts, 34 shutouts. If you look at the percentage, it's very, very high, like I said. But, every season he played, was his average. Talk about consistent. 2.18, 2.42, 2.6, 2.3, 2.77, 2.10, and 2.2. And the 49 season, for a lot of people, this is kind of bizarre, ladies and gentlemen. 28, 23, and 9, but 10 of those wins were by shutout. But in 1944, that big, probably one of the best Montreal Canadiens season of all time, comparable to 77, Montreal went 38, 5, and 7. But he only had 2 shutouts. So every game he gave up a goal or 2 goals, but it was there rarely a third goal. And I'm sure the statistics would show, because the amount of games that he either lost or tied in those contests, I don't think he ever gave up more than 4 goals a game. I could be wrong, but he was a money player, ladies and gentlemen. But what happened later on, Jerry McNeil, Jacques Plante, Gum Worsley, Charlie Hodge, all the key ones, that replaced him. But if Durnan would have stayed around, ladies and gentlemen, I think, like I said, Montreal would have won 9 cups in the 1950s instead of 6. Because I know for a fact that he had Detroit's number on many occasions. But then again, Detroit had a strong team with Gordie Howe and everybody else, Del Vecchio, so neither here nor there. So that's the legend of Bill Durnan. If you like what we're doing here with the Vintage Sports File, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. Please, if you want to request, please do so. And if you're making comments about this podcast and other ones, just remember, the Montreal Canadiens stories will never end. I could do 5,000 podcasts. There's no end to the Montreal Canadiens stories. But let's put this in perspective. You're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. You're limited. You have maybe 100 stories that people want to hear. With the Habs, there's 5,000, 10,000. I hope you take this the right way, but you've won nothing for 50-some years. You're irrelevant. You had every opportunity to win the Cup in the last few years with the coaching staff and Austin Matthews. And it's kind of a shame that the 1960s Maple Leaf were ruined by Ballard, ruined by Imlach. And you could have had all that, but you let a crazy man and a crazy GM run it. The Donald Trump of the Leafs was Harold Ballard, and he ruined your team. So the curse that's on your team will only be removed when Harold Ballard is taken from the grave and burned, and his dust is put into Lake Ontario. I would suggest that, because I have a family member that continuously goes to Harold Ballard's grave just to check. Have a good one. Bye.